Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So to start things off officially, I would ask the Portage Township Board to convene, also with a roll call. And then I'd ask the Warren Township Board to convene, also with a roll call vote. So I'll start with the Warren Township Board Chair.
Warren Township Portage.
I'm sorry, with the Portage Township Chair as I looked at him.
All right, so we'll call the Portage Township Board meeting for 127 to order. Roll call, Mohammed Shabazz is here.
Ryan Hill.
Okay, thank you. Warren?
Here we'll call the Warren Township Board, Eric Griffin, Anthony Marble.
Wendy Uhas.
Okay, so we have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. While we're working on pulling up the presentation, I'm just going to go over what our agenda here is. Our attorney, Pete Agostino, could not be here today. He may dial in at some point. So he would usually be kicking off this meeting. He will in future meetings, but he went ahead and gave me his notes that he'd like me to cover to kick things off. So when we can, we're going to pull up the agenda here. And I can actually probably just dial in here. Let's see here. So we are first going to go through just the fire territory overview, what it is, the fundamentals, the process, the timeline.
We're going to go mute myself.
We're going to go through the proposed St. Joe County Fire Department operation or fire territory operational plan, the structure, the provider unit role. Then we're going to go through the financial analysis. We have Nikki, our municipal advisor, who is here with us today, who will go over that. And then we will conduct the public hearing. With the folks here in the room, we won't, we won't put a strict time limit on any of this. It's not big enough crowd for that. So we will try to keep it a little bit more casual to make sure everybody's heard. So starting out with Pete Agostino's notes on what brings us here today. And I could share my screen if you'd like. Let's see. How are we looking? Double duty. So overview of the fire territory. So basically in 1994, a new law was adopted that allowed the formation of a fire territory that was adopted by the Indiana state legislature. The reasoning behind that was the cost of fire protection was increasing as population was increasing. That put greater demands on local fire departments, coupled with the increasing loss of volunteers. That is what led to the legislation that could do this. In order to create territories that could have its own tax levy to match the true budget and needs for that territory. So what was happening was because of government units and the limits on their levy increases, they could not keep up with the real cost of providing fire protection to its residents. We'll talk a little bit about that. And the fire protection territory allows a correction in the levy to match the true cost. That correction occurs in the first year. Then going forward, it's subject to the same limitations of levy increases as every other unit of government moving forward. So what the law does require is 2 or more contiguous units to come together. That means they have to share a border. Each board, this is passed by the boards of the townships, in this case, the townships. They have to pass identical resolutions to create the territory. They have to identify which member will be called the provider unit. We'll go through what the roles and responsibilities of the provider unit are. They have to spell out in the resolutions whether the same tax rate applies across the entire territory, and they enter into an interlocal agreement on how the territory will operate. The resolutions have to be passed between January 1st and March 31st. So that is why, if you've seen our notice, that is why the public hearing dates all are taking place before March 31st, because if this were to move forward, a final adoption vote has to happen by March 31st. The territory will then take effect on July 1st, but operationally and the tax dollars would not start until January 1st. So regardless of what happens, should the fire territory continue, Southwest Central Fire Territory will continue to operate as it is through the remainder of this year, as would Warren Township Fire Territory. If this proposal were to pass, operationally, it would begin January 1st of 2025. There's also an equipment replacement fund that is created, as with the rest of the territory township departments. There has to be at least 3 public hearings and at least 1 hearing on adopting the equipment replacement fund. Those have all been scheduled. We have actually scheduled an additional extra hearing right before the consideration of adoption, which is on the same night. So we've actually scheduled 4 public hearings. So what will happen tonight? First public hearing is tonight. First of all, there is no vote tonight. That only happens after all the hearings occur. So that would occur at the adoption meeting, which is in March. I've got the dates right up there. So that would be March 28th at 7 p.m. is the actual adoption meeting. That is where the township boards will vote yes or no to move forward with the territory proposal. So tonight you will hear about the territory, the services it will use, statistics on what's happening with respect to fire protection. You'll also hear what it takes to provide the type of fire protection that our residents expect and deserve. That is the foundation of understanding the budget numbers that will then be discussed throughout this process. Third, there will be an explanation of the impact of the territory on your property taxes, as well as the impacts on other units of government. That is what Nikki will go over. Some, not all, will see a property tax increase, and you will want to know what that amount is. All that will be explained. Fourth, once we present the presentation of the information of what the budget looks like, we will hold a public hearing. Anybody here who wants to speak will have the opportunity to speak. We just ask that everyone wait to receive all the information that we have to provide today first before jumping to any conclusions. We want to hear from everybody. We ask that everybody be courteous at all times, respectful of everybody's time. For whatever reason you may be here to speak tonight, whatever reason the township board members would like to speak tonight, just know that's okay. If you're not ready to speak tonight, you want to think about it, you've got 3 more opportunities to come to another meeting and be heard at that time as well. So I'm going to first start out with what the current status and future planning is for the area that we're talking about here. So running through the statistics here, we're looking at fire stations Warren 18 and 19. Over the past 3 years, they have seen an increase of 26% in their call volume. Station 41, where you're sitting right now, has seen an increase of 15% in the last 3 years. Those numbers do not include mutual aid response. Thank you for those who were involved putting those numbers together. Danny, I know you did a lot of work on that. Thank you so much. So this does not include mutual aid. So what mutual aid is if a call goes out to a different fire department, a different fire station, but for some reason they cannot respond, they're busy or whatever it is, they're incapacitated for whatever reason, and this fire station decides to respond voluntarily. That's mutual aid. It happens all over the county all the time. These numbers do not include that. If it did, the numbers would be higher. But we thought we would just start with that baseline, not including mutual aid. Right here in this local area that we're talking about, there is a lot of economic development ongoing and will be ongoing in the future, particularly in Warren Township. There's a lot of new housing developments that have occurred in the last 10 years, 20 years. And everybody has heard about what is going on at the New Carlisle Enterprise Center, massive amounts of private investment that are occurring in that area, which will affect the local fire departments. There's also been population increases in both Portage Township and Warren Township in residential population, especially with respect to the rest of the county. The population of Portage and Warren has increased by about 9% in the last 10 years, while the rest of the county has only grown by about 2%. This area of the county is growing disproportionately to the rest of the county. People are wanting to move out here and live out here, which is a good thing. So one thing that I do talk about a lot, especially that I've learned over time, is really is something that we've slept on a little bit, is the professionalization of the modern fire department has happened at a very high rate over the decades. There's a lot of cultural expectations that come along with that. A lot of folks, especially from my generation, in talking to other folks in a lot of areas, this fire station, Warren Fire Stations, used to be manned by volunteer fire departments, meaning there was nobody at the station. If a call came in, somebody got off their tractor, they got off whatever they were doing, they drove to the fire station, would pick up a truck, and then they would respond to the call. These days, you're finding when people are moving out into these housing developments, that type of delay in response is not something that they're expecting. They are expecting a faster response time. They're expecting professional firefighters with a high degree of training to respond to their calls. Equipment and facilities, again, kind of going along with that. That does get difficult to keep up with. You're in a fire station right now that was designed to house a volunteer fire department. So over time, it had to be adapted to house a full-time, full-service fire department. That means including shower facilities, bunk rooms, kitchen facilities, these type of things. It's not really built for that. There are other things that these fire stations are not really built for, but over time they've become standard in modern fire stations. Firefighter retention and qualification, again, kind of comes along with that. There's a lot of competition among fire departments now. Pay and benefits are a big factor there. We'll talk about that. Can you, as a fire department, provide safety for your responding firefighters, both on scene and as part of their recovery, as they're responding to calls, the time that they're putting in, and Steve and there are other folks in the room, and I know Chief Downey has made himself available here to answer questions if folks have them about certain qualifications that firefighters have these days, EMT qualifications nowadays. The vast majority of firefighters that are going to respond to a call have an EMT certification. These are medical calls. A lot of them have. That's not something that was done, even a couple decades ago. So again, the modernization and professionalization of fire departments. And really, the goal here is to have fast and high quality emergency response. It's what residents deserve. It's what residents today expect. So we want to see fast response times, better on-scene service, and better on-scene support in an emergency. And that is also obviously one of the main goals for what we're talking about here today. We also want to have the best possible return for taxpayer dollar, be efficient, be responsible in providing those fast and high quality emergency responses. That's characterized by, again, response times, the service that's provided on scene. We could talk about that here in a little bit, the type of training that firefighters receive, and the type of measures that are taken to ensure firefighters have a safe, relatively safe environment. They have the type of equipment that they need for their own safe health and well-being. Obviously, wanting to be efficient with tax dollars. This is a growing area. That means there's a growing area of demand for fire protection here. If you have questions about it, there's something called an ISO insurance ratings. Again, there's people in the room that are greater experts than me on that, but that is a rating that your area is given, and it is in relation to the type of fire protection that you receive. Businesses, and particularly commercial developers, are looking at that when they're going to see where they're going to invest their money, where they're going to develop, because it affects their insurance premium rates more than it does residential folks. It affects commercial rates. So that does become a factor as well. So you want to be able to attract business development like you're seeing various areas. Those businesses are looking at the type and quality of fire protection that can be serviced to that area. Do the board members have any questions about that? 5 board members here. Any of those details? Okay. We go through the operational plan here and what we're proposing. This would be drawn up in a resolution. I'll stick with the computer that's working. So we're proposing the name the St. Joe County Fire Territory. The participating units at this time will be Warren Township and Portage Township. Our goal is future growth. We would like to also move forward with attracting other entities that would be also interested in joining this territory. And we'd like to start that right away. If this proposal were to be passed, we think it's important. So we are putting this together with an eye on future growth. This would have 3 of the existing fire stations. These are not new fire stations. These are existing. Portage 41, where you're sitting now, Warren 18 and 19, which are both Warren Township fire stations. The proposal would have each unit maintain its identity on its assets as a unit of the overall territory. And I think we were kind of muddling around with what that would look like. But basically, all assets, all fire engines, patches, logos would have St. Joe County Fire Territory on it. But depending on where you were responding from, it might say, did we say division? District, Portage District, Warren District. The idea there is it might be nice both for the fire personnel, but also for residents, folks who are on the receiving end of your calls. It'd be nice if they saw that this was their local Portage Fire Territory or fire department that was responding versus, somebody else. They would know that it would be identified on there. It would be managed by a territory board as per law. The territory board is responsible for all tax levies, adopting and managing the budget, hiring and setting policy for the fire department. This is the staffing that we would propose. Instead of having three-man shifts, we would propose 5-man shifts at each Warren and 18 and 19. That's 3 shifts, 5 firefighters each. Portage 41 would start with 3 and the additional battalion chief. That right now is because of the current limitation here in Station 41. The future goal would that to also be 5 firefighters once Station 41 had additional bunk rooms or additional space created for to be able to adapt to those shifts. And then as far as administration and leadership, there'd be 5 staff members, including the fire chief and assistant chief. These are the proposed salaries for those positions. This would put us in line with other local fire protection agencies. This is what they are paying for their firefighter staff and their leadership. We think we'd be very attractive with these salaries, and we'd be able to, again, compete, would help us with retention, not losing firefighters, be able to ask for the type of qualifications that residents are looking for in their fire protection services. These are the type of salaries that we would be looking at. Talking about the provider unit a bit, what is the provider unit? The provider unit would be Portage Township. That would be overseen by myself and my staff at my office. The provider unit just provides administrative support to the territory, the daily management and oversight of administrative staff. Financial management's a big one. This would be 50 staff members. That payroll has to be done, accounts payable, accounts receivable. There's billing to insurance agencies, these type of things. That would be all handled by staff under the management of Portage Township. So we'd be providing the human resources services and support, the administrative support, the legal support, all that kind of stuff to the fire territory as a whole. Why we think this makes the most sense, Portage Township already has a staff. Portage Township, has the smallest amount of assessed value in the territory. So this is a way that we can contribute in a very big way toward the overall success of the territory, is manage the administrative support side of things. So also through that, we'd be paying all bills, coordinating the maintenance, insurance. Why I put insurance and insurance? I probably meant health insurance, and then I meant like liability insurance and these sort of things. And then the administrative support to the fire personnel when they're having issues, folks are buying houses, just the things that come up on a daily basis for employees. They need someone to, the bank needs to verify XYZ. These are the type of support that we're providing to them. They're having issues with their payroll, issues with whatever, ordering supplies, these type of things that would be done through Portage Township. So that is what the provider unit does. It does not have a greater voice in the territory oversight or management as far as the board goes. Everyone would have the interlocal agreement would be set up in such a way that everyone would have an equal say in the territory when it comes to policy, budget. Questions about any of that before I turn it over to Nikki from the board? Boards, Wendy?
Quick question.
Nikki, you good?
Ryan has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. So in that case, the administrative staff, those would be employees of the territory, not of Portage Township.
No, everybody is in it. So strictly speaking, the budget is housed in the Portage Township budget.
Okay.
So when you would go to find, just like now, when you look for there is no Southwest Central Fire Territory budget that exists on Gateway,
right.
the DLGF. You would go to Center Townships and they are the provider unit. You would see it under, it's a separate fund. So I could not use that money to provide any other services that the township provides, parks, cemeteries, whatever they might be. It can only be used for the fire department, fire territory purposes.
Okay.
So it would be a separate fund that the township board would, your annual report that you're passing, it's something you would review on your ongoing basis. So it is an additional a responsibility for the Portage Township Board as well, in a ways.
Okay, second question regarding the salaries and such. Based on that, is the idea to be 75,000 across the board for all firefighters that are
Yes.
full-time? So there's no more like people who've been here longer or anything, that's all?
No, go ahead,
There may be
Steve.
some adjustments to, some certifications of helping captain. But as far as the starting firefighter pay, everyone is across the board the same
A base pay, yeah.
from their base, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Basically, we would be adopting the same standards that other fire departments are following.
Most fire departments out there, if you get, let's say you hit 5 years, you're at your top pay, then everybody from there on is the same. You don't continue year over year getting an increase just because of years of service. You might if the entire wage goes up, for instance, but not just because of years of service. So in here, everybody would be at that same starting pay. If in the future there's a across the board, pay increase, whatever that may be, that would be reflected to everybody. But individually, everyone's at the same pay when we start.
Okay, and yeah, that's because generally speaking, there isn't a lot of division between that and among them.
And everyone coming in right now is a senior person. They're not, to break it down and you got more years here, more years there. Everyone is on the same plate.
And I can only speak for Steve and I, because this would be a territory board decision, but Steve and I are supportive of a union forming, just like
Right.
current fire departments have. So these are also ongoing discussions that the territory board would want to have with the union of the firefighters of the territory.
Those are my questions.
Okay,
Will you drive for me?
I can drive.
Okay. I'm Nikki Franklin. I'm gonna introduce myself. I am a part owner of Peters Franklin, of Municipal Consultants. We serve the state of Indiana. Our expertise stop at the borders. We have up here in St. Joe County, we go across this to Ben LaGrange. I have down in Knox County, Rising Sun. So we're all over the place. We're well traveled these days. So I've been asked to put together this financial information. Some of it is required by statute, so I apologize for some of the mundane part that we have to get to, but we'll try to keep that as exciting as possible. We may have to have PDFs or something for future meetings because that's going to be hard to see. So starting out on
Make it bigger.
this first one is the proposed budget and funding.
Oops. Hold on.
He just spoiled
You
it.
can't give me buttons, man. Don't give me buttons.
Spoiler alert.
I'm not a.
Well, I'll talk to see if, and if they can get it bigger, that'd be great. Maybe we'll have handouts for my part because it's a lot.
I can make one comment, not to interrupt you, but you're throwing a lot at us, And I know you couldn't have a handout for everybody, but is that gonna be online where we can see this? That she's presenting.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do a lot of different things. I could throw it up on the Portage Township website. If folks want to, I can go throw it up on.
You're throwing a lot at us, that we need to dissect, There's gonna be a lot of questions, and I know I'm going a lot of them before it's over with.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we should,
I'm gonna see a lot of
we
information
print something now.
besides what's being thrown out tonight.
Good. On the computer. I'm gonna email the chief right now, and if he doesn't mind, maybe somebody can go print off some copies, at least that can be passed around from now. And then for the next public hearing, I'll just bring a bunch of copies.
Yeah, that would help.
Did you get my email, chief? With the presentation on it?
Yes.
Okay, you wanna help? Yep. We'll get some right now. Can keep going until, and then okay. No, it's a good thing. I should have thought of that.
They're $1.50 a copy.
I will pay him for it.
I thought surveyor, I'm expecting something on the surveyor's act.
All right, so I'll continue and then we can circle back if people have questions. I'm done. So this shows your funding in the proposed budgets for 25, 26, and 27. So 25 will be the first year of this potential fire territory. So looking big picture, the units have proposed about a $5.4 million budget in 25, and that goes up to about a 6.2. That's a 7% growth annually. Inflation right now was 8%? I think it's down to 3%, but we're talking 12% over the last several years. So trying to keep up with inflation as best as possible. The revenue sources would be about 5.5 in 25, 6 in 26, and 6.3 in 27. And that comes from your property tax levy that will produce our tax rates that we'll talk about shortly. Based on your property tax levy, you get auto excise and CVIT based on your levy throughout the county, your percentage. And also income tax that both participating units will see an increase by participating in this fire territory. Thanks. The next one is your equipment replacement, and this is basically your capital fund. All fire territories, most fire territories have this. It's going to be for capital needs of the fire territory. repairing trucks, hoses, SCBA gear, whatever it may be. Costs a lot to keep equipment up and running for a fire department in general. On this one, we have budgets about a little over 200,000 to about 220 and 2027 with annual revenue approximately that. On this one, I'm showing most of the revenues being spent each year. That's just for a sample. This is kind of like a savings account as well. So if they don't spend it all in 2025, it stays in that fund balance and they can save it. So some units save it for a couple of years and then they can help purchase apparatus that way without having to debt finance the larger expenditures.
You need to go to the next slide.
Yes, please. All right, so based on what we just talked about, a levy would need for the operating fund about 5.2 for 2025 and a little under 200 for the equipment replacement. That creates a rate for 2025 of 90 cents, 2026 of 91, and 2027 of 92. We're required by statute.
This is good telling you how we all of our calls, things like that, so you guys can see.
Required by statute. So currently, based on this proposal, Warren Township is about 77% of the assessed value and Portage is 23%. So we're required to put what of the above operating levies are for Warren Township, which would be about 4.1 of the 5.4 and 1.2 for Portage Township. Next slide, please. All right, so based on that rate, and this tax impact is compared to what current taxpayers are paying in Warren and Portage for fire protection in 2024. The 2025, let's back up. In 2024, if your home is 132,300 or above as assessed value, you are at your property tax cap. So you're at your 1% cap. That's as much as you can pay. Statute says that your taxes are not going to see an increase. If you fall in between those lower ones, you will see an increase because you're not currently paying your 1% of your assessed value. So for a 50,000 residential homestead in Warren Township, that unit or that house would pay an extra $68.55 a year for this proposal. A $75,000 home would pay an extra about $103 a year, and 100,000 would pay about $884 a year.
What was that last figure?
About $184 a year. $100,000 home.
I'm sorry,
$100,000 home.
800?
100.
184.
100,000.
184.
Oh,
Your 2% property are all above your cap, at or above your cap, so they will not see a tax increase. Your 3% are not at the caps, and those are your commercial properties throughout the districts. $100,000 commercial property would pay an extra $464 a year. A 250,000 property would pay about $1,100 a year extra. 500,000 property of commercial, again, this is commercial, so this is your 3%, pay about 2,300, and if you're $1 million, you'd pay about 4,600 more. And that was Warren Township residents. Portage Township, because you have a different current tax rate. If your house in 2024 is 130,300 or above, that's your assessment that you get from the assessor, you are at your tax caps. You've paid your 1% and your taxes will not increase. If you live in a $50,000 house, you will pay an extra $41.85 a year. 75,000 will pay an extra $62.78, and 100,000 would pay an extra $109 a year. Your 2%, again, you're at your tax cap, so your 2% properties will not see an increase. Your 3% are not at the cap, So you will, 100,000 would pay approximately 338,000 more a year. 250 would pay about $845 more a year. $500,000 commercial property would pay about 1,600 more a year, and your $1 million property would pay about 3,300 more a year.
And that 100,000 was $338, not 338,000.
Right.
Yes, that's like
You
338. I'm
did.
sorry, 338. Sorry, too many numbers.
So the 2%, this note says farmland and other residential. What are other residential in that case?
So rentals, and I also believe, so like duplexes, apartments, those are all your 2%. I also believe if it's not your primary residence.
Okay.
So if you
So
have
those
a
all have
house
no
up
tax
here, but
increase then.
permanently live in Michigan, Florida, wherever it may be.
Board questions there?
All right, by statute, we have to disclose the impact to other units, which in this one would be your local income tax. And that's really small, so you guys are not going to be able to see that. Big picture, income taxes are based off of previous years, certified levies and distributions. So the increase for this proposed fire territory won't be seen until 2026. Because 2024 is based on 23. 25 will be based on as the units are today. So it will be 2025 before, or 2026 before any of the two current participating units tonight would see an increase. Next slide, please. This is a summary basically of the increases and decreases. We're kind of putting this in a vacuum, assuming that nothing else happens. Nobody else issues any debt, does anything to income tax. The county doesn't alter it. These two units have no control over that, and to show an impact, we have to kind of put ourselves in a vacuum for this. Portage and Warren will both see increases in income tax. Portage about 46,000. Warren will see about 326,000. Again, this is a statutory formula. It's based off of levies of both units going into the territory. So they're 2024 levies and the percentage Warren has compared to Portage. And that gets factored in to how that increase goes. So basically everybody else loses part of their share of the pie, and these two units will gain a little bit of that share of that pie.
So on this, it's showing Center Township as well.
They will, because as you stop being the current territory, they will actually get a bump because they get a decrease because of how that fire territory adjustment is.
Okay. So I was wondering.
Currently for income tax, they get a decrease in their share because they have the bigger piece of the pie out of you two currently. So then when they exit, they'll get all of their share basically as a credit. So Cinder will actually see an increase too, because you guys are splitting the current today's fire territory.
Board questions there? Okay,
So we also have to disclose circuit breaker impact. So I put 23 on there. We do not have 2024 circuit breaker yet because we do not have current property tax bills. Those final amounts won't be known until probably April, which this all has to be done. So we're having to estimate. But again, everybody's going to, by increasing the rate, circuit breaker is going to go up. Everybody gets a little bit of that pie. The counties is going to go up. Both of these units and their civil sides will go, circuit breaker will go up. The school, the library, and the airport authority will all see a circuit breaker increase. Just for a perspective, 2023, the county circuit breaker was $12.4 million. So just to kind of put the 200,000 impact, they have about a $12.4 million annual circuit breaker loss. The schools have about a $12.8 million annual circuit breaker loss. So I just kind of wanted to put that, because those look like big numbers, but I wanted to put that in proportion to what they're currently experience.
So by that, you mean that that's 12 million that is not collected due to circuit breaker, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Confusing.
Next one. The final one I'm required to disclose is excise tax. So excise tax, your license excise, when you renew your vehicle excise, it all goes into a pot. It gets distributed based on your levies throughout the county. By again, this unit increasing their levy, they're going to get a bigger portion of that pie. Everybody else will get less of a portion of the pie. The county, the school, and the cities will see the biggest loss in those two. Again, we're vacuuming ourselves into this bubble that nobody else does anything to impact property taxes along the way between now and 2025.
I don't see any changes on that one though, the 25, 26, 27.
That's based on, so those are the net losses. So
Well, I mean, each year is,
I know, because I assumed that pool is the same each
oh,
year.
okay.
So income tax, it's gonna kind of go up. Excise tax, I'm just assuming it's the same pool, and what you lose in year one is what you're gonna lose in year 2 and 3. Again, these are all assumptions because nobody really knows what 2025, 26, and definitely 27 is going to look like. All right, that's my required.
Thank you, Chief. He's gonna pass out some of these slides. Before we do the public hearing, I just want to ask the board, any questions on anything here? Before we open up to a public hearing. Any? Good. All right, guys, I would just say, again, I don't think we have to do anything super formal. If you'd like to speak, I would say just maybe raise your hand, let us know your name and address for the minutes. And when we can start, if folks have something to say. Besides Bobby K. Go ahead. You want to just sit up here? Yeah, go ahead.
If I can get through some of this, but
Take your time. We can wait if you want to look through it.
I say we could take just a short.
Do you want to take a minute, look through it all? You guys just got it.
it's just important today, you know.
Got 3 more meetings.
You know, go back to, you know, the first slide, if I remember.
I'll pull it up.
I can't see it, but you said the increase in Portage and Warren was 9%. I think you showed the population growth.
Yes. Yes.
In, the Warren growing, substantially in housing and economic development.
Go ahead, man.
I think that's what you said in my.
It is growing. That's not what I mean, the population, I don't have facts on why the population increased. I just know that the population. Oh, okay.
Increasing is a good thing. We have a slide that says what that is.
Oh, I don't.
As far
actually.
as,
Economic development, because we're only looking at Warren County.
well, I think the 9% was population increase.
That was just
Between
popular.
Warren and- Between Warren and Portage.
Correct. That was total.
That was
It was
just
total.
It wasn't the businesses or anything like that. It was just the population increase.
Where is the growth in regards?
You mean like a heat map?
I'm sure I know the IEC is growing and really Warren Township on Steve only goes up to what, Social Road maybe, Sage, Rush. And also a lot of the, is there a lot of growth in Warren or are you counting what's going on in Olive Township?
No, that's just one.
This was from John Carlson at the county, the GIS. We asked him a few numbers and that was one he gave us.
That's the one he gave you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I can ask him if there's a heat map he can do.
Yeah, why did I ask him that?
Well, I can do the work there.
Yeah. But I'm just curious, you know, how, in regards to the territory, Steve, you and I have had this discussion multiple times in regards to, you always have indicated that Warren has to go outside the boundaries to help others.
We do.
And I suppose statutorily, is that going to continue?
Yes.
Or does it have to continue, or how's that work between the territories?
We would not help somebody else. We would continue to respond to wherever we're called. There's no change in that. So if New Carlisle or Bertrand or anyone else calls for assistance, we would send units. That's not gonna change.
It won't change.
No.
And the call volume over the last, you have facts in regards to the call volume over, say, the last 2 or 3 years that it has gone up.
Yes.
You have facts on that, that, you can provide us in regards to that, that warrants this. And the same thing with wages in regards to other fire territories. I know in the article in the paper, you're comparing a lot of stuff to the city of South Bend. You know, well, Warren Township is not the city of South Bend. You know, but you're comparing your salaries, trying to compare your salaries. You're saying other fire territories. Well, what is Clay paying? What is Penn paying? What is, you know?
I could ask them and have a breakdown.
Salaries in those other township areas, you know, besides, does not compare the city of South Bend with Warren Township. But you can't. Based on, you know.
Yeah, it ends up being a recruitment issue, right? But I can get those breakdowns. I can ask the new chief,
You know, and the benefits, you know, he's been on there for.
if you mind,
years.
that note down, action item for me. I'll get those. I'll email them to you, and then I'll bring them to the next meeting.
You know, you're asking a big ask here of a warning, and I'm surprised that there's not people here. But I mean, you did advertising it, you did a nice job advertising it. Try to get people. But it's a big ask because, you know, going back, you know, the township got hit a couple years ago with bonds. Steve, when would that bond be paid off? What is that? 5-year bond, 10-year bond on these?
That's a 20-year bond.
It's a 20-year bond on these fire stations. So the taxpayers got hit with that.
Because of circuit breaker, I don't believe that. It's valid. I don't believe that's an accurate statement. Right.
It is.
I don't believe your statement's accurate.
I don't know. I'm just asking what if it is or it isn't.
Right.
So I'd like to know that answer. You know, along with, you know, the bad assessment that taxpayers can get with. You know, what's the 2%, 55 and older need? That's ordinance that the council passed this year in regards to 2% assessment. What does that do?
John Murphy has indicated to me that generally speaking, the effect of the townships is going to be pretty minimal, considering the spread. They had about 8,000 applications for it, but that he was not expecting a significant impact at this local level, or maybe even for the county. But even for us small entities, that's all. He didn't give me. He of course doesn't have exact numbers.
I was talking to Castellan yesterday. He was in my office talking to me about assessments throughout the whole county. Warren's going to go up a little less than 1% again. 0.06, I think you said. It's going to go up. Based on some other townships in the county are going to go down, neighborhoods and subdivisions and so on. Warren's the one that's going to go up little, very little. It's going to go up. So it's a big ask, you know, but I don't think we're getting enough information to support. You know, you're asking for $125,000 fire chief, city South Bend's chief. You know, if he does, I'd be very surprised.
He does, but I'll get you all the salaries. I'll get you all of them from everywhere.
We're talking township.
That's fair.
If you can't compare Warren Township. And I get it that, you know, you're trying to compete with keeping people, keeping retention, you know, got to have a good salary. I get that. And sure, you know, there's a Warren Township resident. You know, but I haven't heard you say that included in this, you know, is the ambulance service. Are we going to get an ambulance service? There's a lot of discussion in regard. I never heard you say anything about.
It's a great question. No, it's a great question. I can talk about that. We proposed that when we were proposing to Center and Union. If Center and Union were to be moving forward with us, we would have had EMS, two ambulances stationed at 2 different stations, and we would have taken on EMS from the county, but we're not able to do that with this budget.
Because, you know, being on the council for 8 years, you know, there was a lot of discussion in regards to, you know, there was discussion at times county pulling out of the contract with the city of South Bend.
Yeah, from my understanding, that's still a possibility.
It's still a possibility. That's why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, that's a goal. Yeah.
If we're looking forward, why aren't we looking forward to ambulance service?
Well, we are. That was in our initial proposal. We can't support it with these two townships, with these two entities. We would need more entities to get on board to support EMS. We ran those numbers for sure. So when I talked about the future goal, if this were to move forward, right away going to go start appealing to other townships and entities nearby, ask them if they'd be interested in joining this to make it bigger.
But it sounded like Green or Union, Liberty Township was interested or not interested.
Your Center and Union declined. Yeah.
Green, they're out on their own and Liberty's out on their own.
They are, yeah, but I'm not gonna stop trying.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I think in my mind, it's if we can put together something really nice here that works really well for the residents and we show those entities that this can work and, make it attractive for them to be a part of it. And then adding ambulance service would be probably one of our top goals. We had it in our initial proposal.
I would think that would be empty town.
Huge, yeah.
And at some of these salaries, I don't give you all these guys in this room that go into the service for money. But I think we're gonna really look at future. I think we need to look at ambulance.
Absolutely agree.
I mean, because if the county cuts that contract, you're gonna have to.
Well, we pay for it, but yeah.
The way the wind is blowing now in county government, I would not be surprised if that happens sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Question.
Yes, sir.
James Hardy on Quince Road.
Thank you.
Will the station 41 here, obviously you don't have the room for additional personnel to man it. Are you planning on building this location out as well, like Warren did?
I'd like to in the future. Yeah.
Any of these assessed values, or is this a bond that will be totally separate and then Portage Township will be responsible? Or since we're all together now, will it fall under?
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question. So to answer it, yes, I am interested in rebuilding the station or renovating this one. That's the conversation. The real problem that I have, just speaking my truth, I would knock it down, build a brand new one right next door. However, if other entities were going to get involved here, this might not be the ideal location if we were now servicing Green and New Carlisle and these other areas. So in my mind, it's put this together here, go out and start talking to those other entities, do what we can to make this station work in the meantime. But that would absolutely be on my radar to do. And it's very important to me to do that because again, this does not meet the current safety standards for firefighters. To answer the second part of your question, if that was going to be done, it would I'm not carving it in blood. It would most likely be done by a bond and it would be supported by Portage Township alone because this is a facility owned by Portage Township. So it wouldn't be supported by the whole territory. It would just be Portage Township. It's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
Harry Kosik, Center Township. So will you explain a little more detail about safety hazards or the safety aspects that the station doesn't meet for our firemen?
Well, the biggest one that's sort of it's rough territory, man. These guys that work here are great and it's a great station. It really is. It's been retrofitted. If you walk out here and these guys wouldn't mind showing you, I wouldn't mind showing you. Right outside this door is a bay. It's a garage. There's a garage door still there. There's 4 bunk rooms that have been built into it. There's ventilation problems. They've had to fight mold and these kind of problems. That's a big one. But it's not the only one. It's not the biggest one. Another one that's not the biggest one is when these guys are sleeping and girls, when they're sleeping in the middle of the night and they get a call, they run out of their bunks, they dress and they jump on the trucks. The bathroom is on the other. This sounds funny and small, but the bathroom's on the other side of the station. They don't go to the bathroom because they don't have time. So they want to show up to your house as fast as they possibly can. They don't go to the bathroom. And in their words, hope for the best. What I've been told by every firefighter, we just hope for the best.
come to our house to help with a fire.
Did you let me use the bathroom?
Center there, and no, they didn't, but they were phenomenal. And I now really feel bad for them.
No, well, I mean, they're great. But the biggest one is, and I've learned myself, to be honest with you, I don't pretend to be an expert. The biggest one that I have learned in discussing this station in itself is and he can talk more, most modern stations are built with airflow so that when these guys return from a fire and they got dangerous, gross stuff all over them that has carcinogens on them, they take it off and air pushes all of that grossness and dangerous stuff out of the station. We don't have that set up here. They take the stuff off. It's right near where they sleep. It's not an ideal situation. That's probably number one for me is the health of the firefighters. It's important that these modern fire stations have you wouldn't even think of that walking through, but they're designed in such a way so that is it a clean room, a dirty room? And then they undress in a dirty room, sends the air out of there. They're all safe inside. We don't have that here.
This isn't built back in that.
Right, exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, 19 what?
Exactly right. And it serves well, the township. It's just.
At the time, but yeah, it's.
But now we know, I've read articles, there's a linkage to that in cancer.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's big. You see the State House, Maureen Bauer, state legislators, really big fight for that kind of stuff. So that's a big topic these days is firefighter safety. So that's one thing. It's not being addressed by this territory, but it's a high priority for me.
It will, Steve, if you're running Olive, why was there a conversation with Olive Township?
They're interested, but we started talking to them probably too late in the game. They said they would rather us get formed and then come back and talk to them. So I think there's an interest there. But right now, they would rather see us form a territory and then come to them and say, here's an option for you to go to.
We're going to go to them. There'll be one really hot right away that we'll go to and say, would you be interested in joining now?
We feel we're building a territory that's gonna not only attract firefighters, but would attract other government units to come to it. Because it's gonna be a positive area.
If you talk about growth is west, not down south.
Mhm.
Growth is west, so that's why I think that you would talk to Olive first, before you even thought about this, but, I don't know what you guys did to. So, but that's where it goes. That's where everything's gonna be at.
I'm going to be here if there's no other questions, and you don't want to ask in front of everybody. Steve, I'm sure, the board, if you have something to say. Otherwise, any other comments from anyone? Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to put it up here. We do have more meetings. Here they are. So our next one will be March 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you to the board members for showing up. We need quorum at all of these, so at least 2 board members from each township need to be here.
Hi. Could I get the Warren Township board people's names again? Went
Sure.
very fast. Wendy?
I'm going to go ahead and call for the meeting to be adjourned by the board chair of Portage Township.
Portage
Second.
Township code, never mind.
There you go. Can I ask the same of Warren?
That's how we roll.
That's how we roll. What's your name, sir?
Second. Why?